Vitamin D has long been categorized as a vitamin, but in reality it behaves more like a hormone, and this changes the way we should think about it. When most people hear the word vitamin, they think of something that plays a small supporting role, something secondary to the real processes in the body. But vitamin D is fundamentally different. Once it enters the body, whether from sunlight or supplementation, it is converted into a powerful hormone known as calcitriol. This hormone interacts directly with DNA, turning genes on and off. In fact, research shows that vitamin D has influence over more than 2,000 different genes. And that means it is not just one little nutrient tucked away in a long list of vitamins. It is a central regulator of how your body functions. At the most basic cellular level, every single cell in the human body has a receptor for vitamin D. That alone tells us how crucial it is. These receptors are like locks waiting for a key, and vitamin D is that key. When the key fits, instructions are given to the cell about growth, repair, energy use, and immune balance. If vitamin D is low, those instructions become weak or absent, and the cell does not perform at its best. This explains why deficiency in vitamin D can manifest in so many different ways, from poor bone health to weakened immunity, low mood, fatigue, weight gain, and even increased risk of chronic disease. It is not random that one nutrient can impact so many systems. It is because this is not just a nutrient. It is a hormone signaling system that touches nearly every function in the body. Take the brain as an example. Neurons have vitamin D receptors, and when vitamin D is present, it helps regulate the production of neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine. These are the brain chemicals that determine mood, motivation, and cognitive clarity. If vitamin D is low, the brain struggles to make enough of these chemicals, and the result can be depression, brain fog, or anxiety. Similarly, in the immune system, vitamin D plays a role in training immune cells to distinguish between real threats and the body's own tissues. Without enough vitamin D, the immune system can become either sluggish, failing to protect against infections, or overactive, attacking healthy cells and triggering autoimmune conditions. Metabolism is another area where vitamin D acts more like a hormone than a vitamin. It helps regulate how cells respond to insulin, which in turn influences blood sugar control. People who are deficient in vitamin D often have higher risks of developing insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes. On top of that, vitamin D impacts fat cells directly, helping to regulate how fat is stored and released. This is why individuals with low vitamin D levels often find it harder to lose weight or struggle with stubborn belly fat. Again, it is not because vitamin D is a side player. It is because it is an essential hormone signal that tells the body what to do with energy. Another fascinating role of vitamin D as a hormone is in cell growth and repair. Cells rely on vitamin D signaling to know when to divide, when to grow, and when to die off if they are damaged. Without this regulation, damaged cells can linger longer than they should, and this is one of the contributing factors in the development of cancers. Adequate vitamin D, especially at higher levels, supports the body in maintaining healthy cell turnover, which protects against abnormal growth. This is why low vitamin D status is linked with increased risks of various cancers, and why restoring it can be such a powerful preventive measure when you step back and look at the big picture. The label of vitamin is almost misleading. It makes people think it is just about preventing rickets or helping bones absorb calcium, when in reality it is a master regulator. It is like a conductor in an orchestra, making sure every section is in rhythm and in harmony. Without it, things fall out of tune. This is why optimizing vitamin D levels is not just about skeletal health, but about supporting the entire system. Hormones run the show in the body, and vitamin D is one of the most influential hormones we have access to simply by sunlight, food, and supplementation. Recognizing its true role allows us to see how critical it is to keep levels in the optimal range, not just the bare minimum to avoid deficiency symptoms, but enough to unlock its full hormone-like potential. In the body, most people today are walking around with vitamin D levels far below what their bodies actually need, and the main reason is the way we live. Our ancestors spent hours outdoors, working, walking, or simply existing under the sun. The skin was regularly exposed to ultraviolet light, which triggered the production of vitamin D. Today, the situation is the exact opposite. People spend most of their time indoors, in offices, cars, and homes, rarely letting the sun touch their skin. When they do go outside, they often cover up with clothing or sunscreen, which blocks the UV light that is necessary for vitamin D synthesis. As a result, deficiency has become almost universal, and this deficiency is not mild. It is a widespread problem that silently undermines health in ways that people do not always connect to a lack of sun exposure. The recommended daily allowance for vitamin D has been set far too low to correct this deficiency in most people. A typical multivitamin contains around 400 international units, and even when supplements go up to 800 or 1,000 IU, this is not nearly enough to restore blood levels into the optimal range. Think about this. Just 20 to 30 minutes of midday sun exposure on bare skin can generate between 10,000 and 20,000 IU of vitamin D in the body. That means the amounts found in most supplements are like drops in a bucket compared to what nature intended. But this is why so many individuals remain deficient, even though they think they are taking enough through their daily vitamin pill. The truth is, low doses often have little effect, and without testing blood levels, many people assume they are covered when they are not. When vitamin D remains low, the effects ripple across many systems of the body. The immune system becomes weaker and more prone to imbalance, which means more frequent colds, flu, and infections. Bones become weaker over time because calcium cannot be absorbed properly. Muscles feel weaker, and people experience aches and pains that they attribute to age, when in reality, they may be signs of deficiency. Even mood disorders like depression or fatigue can be linked to chronically low vitamin D. This silent epidemic persists because people underestimate how much they truly need and rely on doses that barely scratch the surface. Another reason deficiency is so common is geography. Those who live farther from the equator simply do not get enough sun for much of the year, no matter how long they spend outside. In the winter months, the angle of the sun is too low to stimulate vitamin D production in the skin. Add to this darker skin pigmentation, which naturally requires more sun exposure to make the same amount of vitamin D, and the problem becomes even larger. It is no wonder studies consistently show the majority of the population is deficient, with some estimates reaching over 70% in certain regions. This deficiency is not a small health concern, but a major factor contributing to widespread issues like obesity, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and mental health struggles. Relying on food alone is also not realistic. While a few foods like fatty fish, cod liver oil, and fortified dairy contain vitamin D, the amounts are modest and cannot make up for the lack of sun exposure. You would have to eat large amounts of salmon every single day to get anywhere near the levels your body produces naturally from sunlight. These cells signal the immune system to back down once the threat is neutralized. Without enough vitamin D, this regulatory mechanism is weaker, leading to unnecessary inflammation, in some cases autoimmune flare-ups. This is why low vitamin D has been linked to conditions such as multiple sclerosis, rheumatoid arthritis, and type 1 diabetes, all of which involve an immune system gone rogue. What makes high-dose vitamin D particularly effective is that it provides enough of this hormone-like nutrient to saturate the receptors on immune cells, ensuring the signals are strong and consistent. Small amounts might help maintain minimal function, but optimal amounts allow the immune system to truly operate at its best. This difference can be the line between someone catching every seasonal bug versus someone who rarely gets sick. It can also determine whether an autoimmune condition worsens over time or remains under better control. In this way, vitamin D does not just strengthen the immune system. It balances and modulates it so it works smarter, not harder. There is also growing evidence that vitamin D plays a role in cancer prevention through its immune effects. Cancer cells often hide from the immune system, but vitamin D enhances the ability of immune cells to recognize and target abnormal growths. While it is not a cure, maintaining higher vitamin D levels may improve the body's natural surveillance system against developing tumors. This ties back to its overall role as a regulator. guiding immune cells to act at the right time, in the right way, without causing unnecessary damage to healthy tissues. Another overlooked benefit of vitamin D in immunity is its impact on inflammation during infections. When the immune system fights a pathogen, inflammation is part of the response. But too much inflammation can damage organs and create complications. Vitamin D helps keep this process under control, ensuring the response is effective, but not destructive. This balance has been highlighted in studies showing that people with higher vitamin D levels often have better outcomes when facing severe infections because their immune system is strong enough to fight yet restrained enough to avoid harming the body. The key point is that vitamin D is not just boosting immunity in one direction. It is guiding the immune system to work more intelligently. It activates the parts that need to be strong while calming the parts that could go too far. It is this dual role, strengthening and balancing, that makes it unique compared to many other nutrients. And because immune health influences nearly every aspect of well-being, from how often you get sick to how your body handles chronic conditions, optimizing vitamin D through higher doses when needed becomes one of the simplest yet most powerful steps someone can take to protect their long-term health. Vitamin D plays a remarkable role in brain function and mood regulation, and this is an area that many people are unaware of until they begin to experience the difference. The brain is filled with vitamin D receptors, and these receptors are especially concentrated in areas responsible for mood, memory, and behavior. When vitamin D is present in optimal amounts, it helps regulate the production of neurotransmitters such as serotonin and dopamine. These chemicals are responsible for feelings of happiness, motivation, focus, and overall emotional stability. If vitamin D levels are low, the production of these neurotransmitters suffers, and this can lead to depression, anxiety, irritability, or that heavy sense of brain fog many people complain about. One reason vitamin D has such a strong influence on mood is its direct role in serotonin synthesis. Serotonin is often called the feel-good neurotransmitter, and low levels are associated with depression and poor emotional balance. Vitamin D helps activate the enzyme that converts tryptophan, an amino acid, into serotonin. Without enough vitamin D, this conversion slows down, leaving the brain with less serotonin to work with. The result is not just a slightly lower mood, but sometimes full-blown seasonal affective disorder, a type of depression that flares up during the darker months of the year when sunlight exposure is limited. This is one of the clearest demonstrations of how closely vitamin D status and mood are connected. Dopamine, another critical neurotransmitter, is also influenced by vitamin D. Dopamine controls motivation, reward, and drive. People with low dopamine often struggle with lack of energy, difficulty concentrating, or even addictive tendencies as the brain tries to seek out stimulation. Vitamin D helps regulate dopamine pathways, ensuring they function properly. This explains why individuals who bring their vitamin D levels up often report more motivation, clearer thinking, and a better ability to focus on daily tasks. For children and adults alike, optimal dopamine levels are linked with better learning, memory, and productivity, all of which can be influenced by vitamin D status. Beyond neurotransmitter regulation, vitamin D also helps protect the brain from inflammation and oxidative stress. Chronic inflammation in the brain has been linked to depression, Alzheimer's disease, and other neurodegenerative conditions. Vitamin D has anti-inflammatory properties that calm overactive immune activity in the nervous system. This reduces the risk of brain cells being damaged by prolonged inflammation. At the same time, vitamin D supports the growth and maintenance of nerve cells, helping the brain repair itself and form new connections. In this sense, vitamin D is not just about mood, but about long-term brain resilience. Low vitamin D levels have been linked in numerous studies with higher risks of depression, especially in regions with long winters and limited sunlight. Populations that live at higher latitudes tend to show higher rates of seasonal affective disorder, which again ties back to reduced vitamin D synthesis. Supplementation studies have shown that bringing vitamin D into the optimal range can significantly improve mood scores and even reduce symptoms of major depression in some individuals. While it is not the only factor influencing mental health, it is a powerful one that is too often overlooked by both patients and doctors. Another fascinating link is between vitamin D and sleep quality. Serotonin, which depends on vitamin D for its production, is also a precursor to melatonin, the hormone that regulates sleep cycles. When vitamin D is low, serotonin is low, and melatonin production can be disrupted. This means poor vitamin D status can indirectly contribute to insomnia, restless sleep, or irregular sleep-wake cycles. By correcting vitamin D deficiency, many people find not only an improvement in mood, but also in the depth and consistency of their sleep, which then further enhances emotional stability and mental clarity during the day. The connection between vitamin D and mental health also extends to stress management. Chronic stress depletes neurotransmitters and taxes the nervous system, and vitamin D appears to buffer this effect by supporting balanced cortisol levels. Cortisol is the stress hormone, and when it remains elevated, it can lead to anxiety, fatigue, and mood instability. Adequate vitamin D helps regulate cortisol output from the adrenal glands, allowing the body to respond to stress without being overwhelmed by it. This balancing act is another way vitamin D strengthens mental health on multiple levels. The beauty of vitamin D's impact on mood and brain function is that it is relatively simple to restore. Unlike complicated psychiatric medications with long lists of side effects, vitamin D supplementation, combined with sun exposure when possible, offers a natural way to lift mood and support brain chemistry. For many people, it may not replace other forms of treatment, but it often enhances them, making the brain more responsive and stable. By ensuring optimal levels, you are essentially giving your brain the hormonal environment it needs to thrive. This is why people often describe a brighter outlook, sharper thinking, and steadier emotions once they correct a deficiency. It is not just coincidence. It is the direct effect of vitamin D working through the brain's receptors to restore balance and vitality. Vitamin D has a profound effect on metabolic health, and one of its most important roles is regulating how the body handles blood sugar and energy storage. Insulin is the hormone responsible for allowing glucose to enter cells, where it can be used for energy. When cells become resistant to insulin, glucose builds up in the bloodstream, leading to high blood sugar and eventually type 2 diabetes. Vitamin D directly influences how sensitive cells are to insulin, improving their ability to respond efficiently. This means that with optimal vitamin D levels, the body can regulate blood sugar more effectively, reducing the risk of insulin resistance. When vitamin D is deficient, insulin has a harder time doing its job, and this sets the stage for unstable energy levels, cravings, weight gain, and metabolic disorders. Another way vitamin D improves metabolic health is by interacting with fat cells. Fat tissue is not just a passive storage site. It is an active organ that releases hormones and inflammatory signals. When vitamin D levels are low, fat cells tend to enlarge and hold on to more fat, especially around the midsection. I'm on the midsection. This is why belly fat, also known as visceral fat, is so strongly linked to vitamin D deficiency. High-dose vitamin D helps regulate fat cell activity, encouraging a healthier balance between storage and release of energy. People who optimize their vitamin D often find it easier to lose weight and keep it off, because their fat tissue is no longer in a constant state of inflammation and imbalance. Chronic inflammation is another piece of the metabolic puzzle. When the body is inflamed, it interferes with insulin signaling, damages blood vessels, and makes it harder to burn fat. Vitamin D is a natural anti-inflammatory agent that calms down this response, protecting tissues from damage. By reducing inflammation, vitamin D creates an environment where insulin can work properly. Metabolism can function smoothly, and the body can shift more easily from storing fat to burning it. This is why people with higher vitamin D levels tend to have lower risks of obesity, metabolic syndrome, and type 2 diabetes compared to those who remain deficient. Vitamin D also influences the pancreas, the organ that produces insulin. Beta cells in the pancreas have vitamin D receptors, and when activated, Vitamin D helps these cells produce and release insulin in response to rising blood sugar. Without enough vitamin D, the pancreas cannot keep up with the body's demands, especially when someone consumes a diet high in refined carbs and sugars. Over time, this weakens the pancreas and leads to further metabolic problems. Ensuring optimal vitamin D levels protects these cells, allowing them to function properly and support stable blood sugar levels throughout the day. Energy levels are another area where vitamin D plays a key role. For people who are deficient often report fatigue, sluggishness, and difficulty staying active. Part of this comes from poor blood sugar regulation, but another factor is how vitamin D supports mitochondrial function. Mitochondria are the tiny power plants inside cells that produce energy, and vitamin D helps them work more efficiently. With enough vitamin D, cells generate energy more effectively, which translates into greater stamina, better exercise performance, and more motivation to stay physically active. This creates a positive cycle where higher energy leads to more activity, which further supports metabolic health and weight control. There's also evidence that vitamin D helps regulate appetite and cravings. Some studies suggest that low vitamin D may disrupt leptin, the hormone that signals fullness. When leptin signaling is impaired, people feel hungrier, overeat, and gain weight more easily. Optimizing vitamin D can improve leptin sensitivity, allowing the body to better recognize when it has had enough food. This, combined with improved insulin function, helps people maintain a healthier weight without constant cravings or energy crashes. For those struggling with weight management, addressing vitamin D deficiency can be a missing piece of the puzzle that makes the process much easier. Another fascinating link is between vitamin D and cardiovascular health, which is closely tied to metabolism. Poor metabolic health often goes hand in hand with high blood pressure, unhealthy cholesterol levels, and arterial plaque buildup. Vitamin D helps protect the lining of blood vessels, reduces arterial stiffness, and improves lipid profiles. This means it not only helps control weight and blood sugar, but also reduces the risks of heart disease that so often accompany metabolic disorder. It is not just about looking better or losing a few pounds. It is about preventing the cascade of chronic illnesses that come from an unhealthy metabolism. The broad impact of vitamin D on metabolism shows why it is so much more than just a nutrient for bones. By regulating insulin sensitivity, protecting the pancreas, reducing inflammation, supporting fat cell balance, boosting energy, and improving appetite control, vitamin D acts on multiple levels to restore metabolic health. People who take the steps to raise their levels into the optimal range often experience noticeable improvements in weight management, energy, and overall vitality. All because this hormone-like nutrient is finally allowed to do its job in the body. Vitamin D on its own is powerful, but the real magic happens when it works together with other key nutrients, especially vitamin K2 and magnesium. Many people take high doses of vitamin D without realizing that it increases calcium absorption from the gut. While this is a good thing for bones and teeth, it can also become a problem if that calcium ends up in the wrong places. Without vitamin K2 to direct it, this is where problems like arterial calcification, kidney stones, or stiff, aching joints can develop. Vitamin K2 acts like a traffic controller for calcium, telling it to move into the bones and teeth where it strengthens the structure and away from arteries and organs where it would cause harm. This is why high-dose vitamin D should always be balanced with vitamin K2 to ensure that the extra calcium being absorbed is actually being used correctly. Magnesium is another essential partner in this equation. Every step of vitamin D metabolism, from its conversion in the liver and kidneys to its activation into calcitriol, requires magnesium as a cofactor. If magnesium is low, the body cannot effectively use vitamin D, even if someone is taking large doses. This explains why some people supplement with vitamin D but still see little improvement in their blood levels or health markers. Magnesium deficiency is common because modern diets are low in leafy greens, nuts, and seeds, which are the richest sources. Without replenishing magnesium, high-dose vitamin D cannot perform its full function, leaving people frustrated or potentially unbalanced in their nutrient status. When magnesium levels are adequate, however, vitamin D becomes far more efficient, leading to smoother hormone regulation, better muscle relaxation, and reduced inflammation. One of the most dangerous processes in the body is chronic inflammation, and vitamin D combined with K2 and magnesium provides a strong defense against it. Chronic inflammation is at the root of nearly every major degenerative disease, from heart disease to arthritis to neurodegeneration. Vitamin D helps calm the immune system, reducing unnecessary overactivation. Vitamin K2 prevents calcium buildup that would otherwise inflame arteries, while magnesium soothes the nervous system and reduces inflammatory signaling molecules. Together, they create a protective shield that not only prevents disease, but also helps the body recover from stress and wear more efficiently. This trio provides a kind of harmony that none of the nutrients could achieve alone. The cardiovascular system shows one of the clearest benefits of this combination. Vitamin D supports healthy blood pressure and vascular relaxation, but if calcium deposits in the arteries, the benefits can be lost. Vitamin K2 ensures calcium is locked into B1 in teeth, reducing the risk of arterial stiffness and plaque formation. Magnesium further helps relax blood vessels, reducing tension and improving circulation. The result is a healthier heart and cleaner arteries, something that can dramatically lower the risk of heart attack, stroke, and hypertension. This is why studies consistently find that populations with higher intakes of both vitamin D and K2 experience better cardiovascular outcomes compared to those who take vitamin D alone. Bone and joint health also rely on this synergy. Vitamin D boosts calcium absorption, K2 directs calcium into the B1 matrix, and magnesium helps maintain B1 density by balancing calcium with other minerals. Without magnesium, bones can become brittle despite high calcium intake, and without K2, calcium may end up stiffening joints instead of strengthening bones. This trio ensures bones remain strong but flexible, lowering the risk of fractures while also protecting mobility and joint comfort into older age. For people worried about osteoporosis or arthritis, this combination is one of the most effective natural strategies to maintain skeletal integrity and reduce long-term pain. Neurological health is another area where the balance of these nutrients shines. Vitamin D supports neurotransmitter production and protects brain cells from inflammation, but magnesium is equally important for calming the nervous system and preventing overexcitation of neurons. Without enough magnesium, the brain is more prone to anxiety, restlessness, and even sleep problems. Vitamin K2, although less studied in the brain, plays a role in protecting neurons from oxidative damage. The combined effect of these nutrients is a calmer mind, steadier mood, and greater resilience against neurodegenerative conditions such as Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. This highlights how the body does not rely on isolated nutrients but on entire networks working together. Even immune health is shaped by this partnership. Vitamin D modulates immune cells, helping them attack invaders without overreacting. Magnesium supports energy production within immune cells so they can respond quickly to infections. Vitamin K2 helps regulate inflammatory pathways that might otherwise go into overdrive during illness. This combined support allows the immune system to stay balanced and strong, reducing the frequency and severity of infections while lowering the risk of autoimmune conditions. The body's defenses become smarter, less prone to error, and better prepared to handle both acute and chronic challenges. When looking at high-dose vitamin D, it is easy to focus only on the benefits of one nutrient, but health is rarely about a single factor. The body thrives on balance and synergy. Vitamin D opens the door by enhancing calcium absorption and regulating countless processes. But without K2 and magnesium, that door can lead to problems rather than solutions. With them, it becomes one of the most powerful tools for reducing inflammation, protecting the heart, strengthening bones, supporting the brain, and keeping the immune system balanced. The combination is what transforms vitamin D from a good idea into a complete strategy for long-term health.